Merry meet, Annie here. This topic is going to be spun off of this past week's topic on pagan perspective, which was about cleaning and cleansing in preparation for doing working or for doing ritual. It was a subs week, and if you haven't seen all the wonderful things posted on Pagan Perspective by the subs regarding their opinion on this, well worth your time visiting Pagan Perspective. My take on it. The question was, do we clean to prepare for doing working or to prepare for holidays? The answer is, I do. I don't have to go to a lot of extra effort because I'm going to be truthful right up front. I like a clean home. I like my environment that I live in to reflect that my home, in a way, is my expanded temple. It's my sacred place. It's my very special hearth, cave, centering place, safe haven. So many things that I could describe my home, and within that environment it needs to be tidy and clean to me. That doesn't mean that throughout my entire life it was that way. I was your typical kid that didn't like to pick up my room, and when I had my first places totally on my own, they were not a model of housewifely cleanliness. There were some interesting days of hodgepodge and collection and fighting back against the fact I had been brought up by a 50s mom who everything was perfect. Everything was perfect all the time as far as the house and the housework and the laundry and the cleaning and the cooking, and I rebelled against Donna Reed very much when I first left home. But then I found out before too very long, whether it's genetic, inherited from my mother or not, I have that cleaning gene. I need my environment to be just so. Okay, we could also say that when life is chaotic, and mine has been many times in my life, if not traumatic, at least chaotic, coming home to that safe place which is welcoming and clean and the place where indeed I have a certain amount of control that I may or may not have elsewhere is very important to me. So at the mundane level there is cleanliness. So we want to do a working, and the question was, do we clean or prepare in some way? At the mundane level, I certainly do. If I am going to do a working here in my meditation room, I will not do it without tidying up first. No journals and bits and pieces laying about, cleaning up from the last time I was making incense, or if there was a gathering in the room, making sure everything is put away, all the stools put away, the rug tidied up. I have one of those rugs that's always kind of do this thing where it's creeping around the room. So the act of cleaning, physically cleaning the area, very, very important to me. Outside, the same thing, picking up, making sure you're not going to trip over a stone, that we have dogs in the backyard. Certain things have to be picked up to make sure there aren't sticks, to make sure that everything is ready. One of the reasons is it doesn't need to be done later. Later has other business to attend to. Later is about separating out the time and the place and not being caught in your attention by some mundane detail left undone in the way of tidying up. It's not the time to start housekeeping when you're casting circles. It needs to be done ahead of time so that those things don't interfere when the time comes. Doing a working or entering a rite, as far as I'm concerned, is what is called the return. We have prepared everything we need to prepare. We have everything we need lined up at our altar or nearby or at hand. We've cleaned up the area. We have made it presentable and ready and waiting. And then there's a very powerful and important thing that we do, which is we step away. We step away from it. We prepare ourselves by bathing or whatever it is that we do that is our way of preparing for a rite. And then there is what's called the return. Stepping back into that place that you have prepared. The distance in between when you tidy up your area and then you return is a way of entering your temple of the place that you have declared you're setting aside for this specific thing, which is not a specific mundane thing, but something set aside very intentionally and carefully. Whether you're going to cast a circle or just settle down and do some spell work, the act of tidying up at the physical level, stepping away to prepare yourself in whatever way you do for the working you're going to do, and then returning. You know when you're returning to a place that you are about to set aside. You've taken the first steps for that. Very important part of the mindset that comes with my kind of traditional practice. So I was talking about the importance of the return. Very important part of a spiritual practice to me, whether we are going to do the work of a spell or whether we are including that in a casting of a circle or doing a circle or a meditation or something that is requiring us to establish sacred place. Coming back into a place knowing you are entering your temple. So obviously I've made it clear how I feel about physical cleaning, not just that my home is something that I hold to a certain level of tidiness and cleanliness all the time because it is our very, very special place. But what it means to me in the sense of preparing for a working or spell work. Even if I want to work on my incenses, I make sure that the area I'm going to work in is tidied up before I begin to think. Clutter clutters the energy that we want to work with. The energy that we manifest even is in response to what's around us. Physically, cleaning leads to the act of reiving. It's not a word that I see commonly used by a lot of my young friends or friends new to the path, but it is what it was called when I was learning about cleaning the space before ritual using our brooms. I am talking about our besoms. I am not talking about the household broom. And I think you know that if you're following these videos. I am talking about the cleansing and preparation at something other than. The first step of the other than. Cleansing the space we're going to hold our ritual in or do our working in. Reiving is the word that I was taught, which is the taking of the besom to clean the energy of your temple. Reiving is an interesting word, and if you look up the etymology of the word, it has a rather violent history. It's an Old English word that is probably tied into plundering, the tearing asunder of a village, the going in and tearing it apart. It was especially about the attack on and tearing apart of the villages at the ends of borders and boundaries between communities, to break down in a aggressive sense the boundaries between these two places. Very interesting history to that word and what it means, and it's kinder living on in what I was told was called reiving, which very often nowadays is just called cleansing or clearing. It is a taking down of the boundaries between the mundane and that which is not mundane. The taking of your broom and the moving about and the resettling of the energy in the place you're going to have your ritual, whether that is in a room or outside in some glorious place or something as quaint as your backyard or your patio or your porch. It is the moving about and resettling of the mundane energy of a place. It is definitely, in the old sense of the word, the rendering apart, the putting something asunder so that it levels down, and within that same space then you create what it is to be. And it's very much about tearing apart a boundary. Very much about reminding yourself that there is a huge change about to come over the area in which you are working. Now I have two brooms, and I'm going to do a little switching around of the camera and see if I can show them to you. You have seen this broom, which is the one I use the most often in my videos that show my altar. This is the broom I use for clearing space when I'm clearing space in a room. Now, what I often see, and it's perfectly fine, is that when people broom the area that they are preparing for their ritual, they will go around actually using the broom and cleaning off the area that they are working with. Maybe only slightly touching the ground if they touch it, using it symbolically. But actually I was taught something even different than that. And I do like to share this with people because I do find that they have enjoyed trying this when they were able to. And that is that the broom as an extension of yourself, in the awareness of moving about, disrupting, setting asunder the energies of a place, In my mind, when the broom moves through your space, it is actually moving through the energy of your place and causing an changing, a shifting, a splitting in it. And when you cast your circle, it's very easily fills this place where you have decided there will be a shifting of the energy. I don't broom in this sense. I broom in this sense. And I take that broom around. I swoop it. Hopefully I can catch some of this. I swoop it around the room in a clockwise motion. And I will start low to the ground, and I will spin it around, and I will spin it around, almost like a tornado, and take the energy up and offer it up. That is how I broom. Now I also do that with my larger broom. When I work outside, when I need to use a broom as a portal, to step over, coming into circle, or whatever, this is the broom that I use. Now the ends of the broom have never been trimmed because it is not meant to be used in a cleansing way in the traditional sense. And hopefully I can show this, we'll see. I also hold this broom against my hand. And once again, the energy is moved. The energy is moved. Starting low to the ground, working my way up and peaking it, and offering up a disruption in a sense, and then a settling down of the mundane energy of a room into what you will then create of it. So let's see if it's at all possible to give you some flavor for what that energy movement will be like for me if I am reaving the space I'm going to use for ritual. I take my broom against my hand and I feel it as an extension of myself, and I'm very aware of what I'm about to do, which is rend asunder the mundane energy in the room in which I'm standing. I point it down and I proceed to circle. And I proceed to circle, and I proceed to circle, and I'm just slowly going higher and 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 higher, and then I offer the energy upward. Now that dance was inhibited by the fact that I have a ceiling fan on and I have candles behind me, and I wanted to give you a sense of the movement and the flow of what reaving is. It takes away some of those connotations of the word that have to do with violent border destruction. It is more about changing and moving and settling down in anticipation of what you are about to do in your sacred place. So that's what I wanted to share, is the energy of reaving. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be the way I do it. My tornado effect of shifting and moving and rendering asunder the energy in the mundane environment you're in. But I wanted to share what reaving is for me, because a lot of people have come to me and they have a broom. They don't have a relationship with the broom. They were told that, well, I'm a witch or I'm a pagan or I'm a Wiccan or whatever I am that requires having a broom. And they never have a relationship with that broom and what it can bring to their circle. So I wanted to share what it is for me. I think the important thing is that no matter the way you choose to live your life, you might not be a cleaning Mimi like I am. However you choose to live your life, the given is when you step aside to do spell work or any sacred work of meditation or creating your incense, doing divination, the casting of circle because you're doing a rite or holding the energy of your work within the circle, no matter how you choose to live your life outside of that, that needs to be a time and a place set aside. You decide what that is for you. It might just be dusting off a place to work within, or a space within a room, and the outside clutter of the room does not bother you. My advice to you is to stop and think about what qualifies as a temple in your life. What space do you declare sacred, and how do you treat that space differently from other spaces in your life? Coming back the second return. The first return of workings is stepping back into that place that you have cleaned and cleansed, reived, if that's a new word for you. That's a return. Returning to the place that you have created and taking the steps then which make it the time and the place set aside. The time outside of place and the time outside of time, it is the sacred circle. And the other beautiful, beautiful aspect to return is when the working is done, when the work of the circle is done, your energy raising, your ritual, whatever it is that you have done within that sacred place that you have set aside, then there is the return. That is the return to home, to the place that is the energy and the physicality of the world we live in. One of the most powerful parts of ritual to me is the ending of ritual, when we say, we return now from this place which is not a place, from this time set outside of time to the time and the place we call home. And we feel the settling in and the rejoining of our bodies and our minds and our souls with this world, which is the world that is ours, the world we live in. So to me, this whole act of cleansing and setting aside, it is about creating the sacred place we work within, that space which is holy. It also then permits us to step outside of that construct, that thing we have caused to happen. Stepping back outside of that into this place we call home. If there's not the intentional setting aside, then there cannot be the intentional return. The second return, returning to here and now. And the very, very powerful and spiritual experience of being in this world. There's my thoughts on cleaning and cleansing, and perhaps introducing the concepts of reiving to those of you who have not yet had the opportunity to explore that. Maybe you can have a relationship with your broom you didn't have before. It is what you need it to be. What acts do you create that set aside place and time separate from the mundane in which we usually live? That's what cleaning and cleansing is all about to this witch. I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.